All right, Brave Voices in Education family. So excited to have you back. I'm so glad you keep showing up. You keep downloading and subscribing and liking all these great things. Today happens to be Mother's Day when we're recording this. And so for all of the wonderful moms and mamas and grandmamas and aunties and godmothers and, house mothers, we just want to send you love and hope that today and just this season feels absolutely radically joyful. And we want you to just feel loved. So we just want to send that to you. So I am Craig Aaron Martin. If you've never heard of me before, I'm an educator, advocate, and curator of courageous conversations and angelic troublemaking. This is the podcast where boldness meets brilliance and healing meets hustle. And so if you are ready, we're going to go ahead and get started on this next edition of Brave Voices in Education. Today's guest is someone who doesn't just write curriculum, he writes blueprints for liberation. Leroy A. Smith is not just a curriculum specialist, he's a cultural architect, a nationally recognized education leader, equity warrior, and design strategist with more than 14 years of experience rewriting the rules of who curriculum is built for and who it's supposed to serve. He's the founder of Realize Curriculum Solutions, a company that has impacted over 1 million students. Yes, you heard me, 1 million students across the country, not with cookie cutter lessons, but with liberatory frameworks that center language, disability, justice, race, and humanity. His work helps schools teach real life to real students in real time. Whether he's reimagining literacy strategies with Carnegie Learning, shaping civic identity through the Center for Civic Education, or co-creating culturally responsive experiences with barbershop books, Leroy's mission remains the same: to make sure that historically marginalized learners, especially students with disabilities, are no longer an afterthought, but the starting point. He brings heart into data. He brings policy into practice. And he does all of this while keeping one question front and center: who are we still leaving out? Leroy, welcome to Brave Voices in Education. Please tell the people how you became who you are as we experience you today.
Well, thank you, Craig, and for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And what a great intro. Probably my favorite intro I've ever received from anyone. So thank you. I really appreciate that. The way I got into education was kind of informally. I always say people that I started my experience in education before I even knew it. So my maternal grandmother, Carolyn, God rest her soul, her birthday was, which day is it? It's coming up this week, actually, on the 15th. Daycare in our house, in our apartment. Growing up, I'm born and raised in Baltimore, still live in Baltimore, own my home here.
Hey, or be more.
Yeah, so Beatmore's in the house. So my grandmother had a daycare for my little cousins and for kids in the community. And I was one of the oldest kids there. So I just kind of helped out. I mean, I was from changing diapers to reading stories to them to coloring with them. And I started at the age of 4. So I've always been in the service of working with children before I even knew it. And as I matriculated throughout my educational career, I was a student peer mentor in elementary school and middle school. I was a tutor with the Baltimore Algebra Project, which was a radical kind of social justice and math tutoring program here in Baltimore City that's still a program today at my high school, Baltimore City College High. So we tutored students in algebra and pre-algebra. And then when I went to undergrad, I actually went to undergrad for vocal music, believe it or not, because I had a great experience in the choir and a choral music program throughout my experience in Baltimore City schools. And also at the UB Blake Cultural Arts Center, I had some summer camps there as well in jazz and other styles of arts. So I went for vocal music and music education. Music education part didn't work out for me necessarily because the curriculum at the college was changing so much at Gettysburg College. And between family stuff I was dealing with and the racial stuff on campus, it was a lot going on. So I just decided to be a vocal music performance major, which worked out quite well for me. Studied opera, jazz, anything I get my hands onto, R&B, whatever I was interested in, I tried to do. And then I did a program through a work study program, the America Reads program. And through that work, I worked with the school that was near our Gettysburg College. It was called VITA. I think they're still around, VITA Bilingual Public Charter School. So at that school, which was just off campus, I drove there twice a week for work study. I worked with a literacy specialist or reading specialist, and Miss Diana, she was really cool. And we worked with multilingual learners who were newcomers to the country who were learning English as an additional language. And I learned how to do small group reading instruction with her. So she coached me, and I came to the campus twice a week, and I would read with them and learn about their families and their histories coming from different parts of Latin America, which led me to want to become a teacher outside of music, actually. And I did it's now called City Teaching Alliance, but it used to be called Urban Teacher Center and Urban Teachers back in the day when I was in it in cohort 2012.
Okay.
I did that alternative program, which was partnered with Leslie University here in Baltimore City. Yep. Yeah, they were partnered with Leslie at the time, since they're, in Boston. But I did that program and went through that program, and I've taught in Baltimore, DC, and Prince George's County, Maryland, as special education teacher, general education teacher. Most of it's been in special education, actually. Done some curriculum work with DC schools, done curriculum work with a whole bunch of people, and so kind of led me to where I am now. And so that's kind of my journey, kind of starting there officially, but my motivation for wanting to stay in education has been my brothers I'm the oldest of all my brothers, and each of my brothers who are younger than me are neurodivergent learners. And unfortunately, Baltimore City schools at the time did not really censor their voices, did not really provide them the resources or the strategies or the personnel to actually reach my brothers. And all of my brothers are now adults. And three of my four younger brothers had had a hard time entering into adulthood as Black men who are living with some level of neurodivergence. And I think a lot of it is because my family didn't know what to do, the schools didn't know what to do, and it just kind of was just like everyone just kind of tossed them to the side because no one knew what to do or no one put forth the effort. So it made me stay in education because I didn't want any other children that looked like me or you to have the same experience. I wanted all of them to see their greatness and realize that there's endless possibilities for them, ones that are available and ones that they have to create. So that's what keeps me in the work.
Wow. That is absolutely powerful. And thank you so much for sharing a little bit more context on not only your journey in music, which I love and adore as someone who I went to Dillard University, banners in the back.
All right, Dillard.
Yes, historically Black university, vocal music was one area that I felt like I found voice, especially in community. And I also was in a band, I played percussion. And so I know that that was definitely a vehicle for me in regards to my ability to communicate how I felt or, just the things that were warring inside of me. But then
Mm-hmm.
also to hear how you made a decision to create solutions that would support your brothers
Mm-hmm.
and subsequently, I imagine you expanded,
Mm-hmm.
that magic to other
Yeah.
folks. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious if you would just give us a little bit more texture to how did you take this recipe that you constructed for your brothers and then build this out to benefit a million plus young
Mm-hmm. Um, I always say I always say there were so many people who planted seeds in me at a young age, and I don't think they fully started to blossom until the pandemic happened, when I think a lot of us were in lockdown and gave us time to reflect. That's when I started Realize Curriculum Solutions was officially in 2020, coming up in 5 years, which is crazy. It doesn't feel like it's been 5 years. It's been like a manic but fun 5 years. So starting from my brothers, the first thing I realized is that the people that work with my brothers, since I went to two of the same schools, my brothers, I went to the same elementary school and middle school,
people.
which both elementary and middle school were named after Black people. Samuel Coleridge Taylor, the great classical composer of his time, Black man violinist, and the great Booker T. Washington, which was my middle school named after, which a lot of schools in Baltimore are actually named after African Americans
Yeah.
who have had a pivotal role in all of our histories. But I noticed that the teachers I had like genuinely cared and like actually loved me and loved me as a human being. One of the first indicators of this is when I was in first grade and I was out for a week from the flu. I remember it because it was a strange thing. I never saw anything like that as a kid. So my first grade teacher, who was a white woman actually, Mrs. Reinhardt, she also that was a different time because that's when we had Bible study after school for a club. That was a whole different time. They don't do that anymore in Baltimore City schools, but that's when we used to have Bible club, and that's what we did. We used to read the Bible, the kids version, and do little projects, whatever it is, from the stories in the Bible. But nonetheless, she noticed that I was out sick for a week, and she came by with a gallon of milk, loaf of bread, and chicken noodle soup for the whole family. And I remember her seeing me, and I was like really, really sick. I came to the door. I had my blanket over me. I was still kind of like recovering, and my mom and everyone was shocked. And he said, "Why are you here?" She says, "Because we miss Leroy. Leroy is a part of our community. He's part of our class."
Mm-hmm.
And that was my very first instance where I realized that outside of my own family, that I was worth something. I meant something to other people. And so it was a powerful thing. And for it to be a white female teacher who, at that point, I didn't have any white educators. Most of my educators, I've been actually fortunate in Baltimore City schools. Most of my educators have actually been Black people. I know across the country that's not the case for a lot of people, but I've been fortunate to see most people get be represented almost every year in my education, to be quite honest, from Head Start, from 3 years old all the way through high school. But I noticed my brother's teachers didn't do things like that. I noticed that my brother's teachers would accuse them of things, and occasionally they would steal a stapler or a hole puncher. Let's be honest, they did that sometimes. They were a little mischievous,
Hmm.
but they didn't have the same level of care. They didn't challenge my brothers. Like if my brothers gave up on an assignment, they would just like let them give up and just move on. They didn't expose them to things that were great. I mean, I had teachers who, exposed me to a whole bunch of things. I mean, from performing at Carnegie Hall in high school, which is a true honor, from traveling the world, going to Barcelona, to performing at the White House, to singing for coin commemorations and all kinds of cool things that, doing partnerships and internships at the mayor's office, doing internships with newspapers. I had all those opportunities afforded to me, but my brothers did not. They had too many interactions with school police. They were being wrongfully diagnosed. I believe they were wrongfully diagnosed. They were being mistreated. They were being over suspended, over all the horrible things you can imagine. And as a result, they just started hating school, wanting to skip school. And so I saw that firsthand because I was helping my brothers with their homework. I was helping them with tying their shoes and figuring out like how to help at home. And now, granted, that's a whole other conversation about being a parentified child. That's a whole nother thing. But
Guilty.
that's a whole other thing. But I genuinely wanted my brothers to do well, and I still do as an adult because I'm their oldest brother. And so, what started my work there is when I started designing solutions. I thought about who are the people who look like my brothers, go through the same experience as my brothers, where do they live, and how can I be of service to them? So it started with me just going into the classroom
Mhm.
and creating solutions by modifying the curriculum. So putting their names in the curriculum, putting their experiences in the curriculum. Some of my favorite lessons I've taught when I was teaching about like unit conversion between meters and kilometers and centimeters, when some of my boys were having like dirt bikes, because I know the dirt bike culture in Baltimore is really huge. So I had videos of dirt bikes and asked them, could you predict how many meters they traveled? And if we could predict how many meters they travel, how could we convert it to centimeters or kilometers? And they were sold on that, or like dirt bike shows. And for our girls, I mean, a lot of them, when I was at that time, they really loved the Powerpuff Girls. I don't know what it was. It was like a whole thing. But we had some of those experiences of like, what would it mean to have a superpower? And if you were to have a superpower in your community, what would that be? How would you be in service to others? So I just started thinking, how can I do more of that? And so and in special education, I feel like that was my niche, because in special education, you're always designing for every individual learner. And that's something I noticed that my brothers didn't get. When I was in gifted and talented, I felt like I had individualized attention. People catered to the way I learned. But my brothers, it didn't feel like people did that. It felt like people just kind of tossed them assignments. And if they did it, they did it. And if they didn't, they didn't. And so that's kind of really what got me into crafting this for over a million students. And some of that was I didn't even realize that until recently when I was going through one of my partners. They shared their annual report with me of how their curriculum through the Center for Civic Education work that I've done with them has reached over a million children,
Mhm.
including the work with all my other partners. it's been well over a million. I had no idea until like recently this year when I like asked my partners, could you give me a reference because I'm applying for a proposal to be a consultant next year with another school, and they just shared all this stuff, and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think that it was that much. I'm not concerned on the number as much as I'm concerned in who are the people who look like my brothers and me who just need to be reached. And I'm glad that a lot of those kids are being reached. And I know there's still more work to be done, especially in these days and time, to continuously empower our children.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your genius, parts of your genius with us, and that there are more young people who are being better served at this time because of what you are designing as entry points, as liberation points for them. And so, a couple of things that I'm curious about just in your journey. One, this is focused on being brave voices. And so, I'm curious how, what does brave mean to you? How do you show up bravely? Or how are you hoping people will show up more bravely in this work that we are doing together to make sure young people are thriving in education spaces outside of the buzzwords and the branding?
Um, I think I've kind of been brave for a long time. I mean, even back when my brothers were being suspended in school, elementary school, I used to go to the principal's office and petition for them not to get suspended.
Okay.
As early as like second grade, I was like, no, my brothers don't need to get suspended. They need more help. Because
Mhm,
I knew at that ages, even I knew as a kid that the answer wasn't suspension. I don't know how I knew that,
mhm.
but for my heart just told me that something wasn't right. I tried to lead, sit-ins or walkouts. I've been doing that for a long time since I was like in elementary schools.
Really?
Yeah, being brave to me has kind of just been a part of I guess, my personality and who I've always been. And I found out through therapy, I'm probably more brave for other people than I am for myself. And I'm working on being more brave for myself at this point in my life, as well as for other people, that I have the power to do both. When it came to being brave, I think my first experiences in education were in the IEP meeting space because
Mm,
I've had a lot of experience as a special education advocate as well. And it's hard because when you have a bunch of people who are around the table, including families and maybe speech language pathologists, psychologists, civil lawyers, advocates, district leaders, it could be a lot of people in there all at one time. It could be like sometimes feels like 15 or more sometimes, depending on the situation. And there have been times I've had been brave where I just said as the case manager, you know what? I don't agree that you should be getting rid of the speech goals. I know you did this evaluation. I know your evaluation is saying that, but the person who's working with them, as much as I'm the person who's worked with them the most, I could tell you that there's still some areas of growth for this child. And I think getting rid of all the services is just going to leave that child high and dry. I'm not a speech language pathologist, so how am I supposed to figure that out? Like, at least leave some consult time on the IEP, or at least have like 30 minutes a week or something. Something. I said, but getting rid of all of it would just leave the child high and dry. And I've had people argue me down, Leroy, I'm the specialist in this area and you're not, so what I say goes.
mm.
And I said, well, last time I checked, I'm a free black man in America, and this is supposed to be a democracy. So everyone at this table, including the parent, most specifically the parent and the child, have the voice here. And if the parent feels like their child is not making progress in speech and language, I don't feel like that, and other people don't feel like that. Just because you did the evaluation doesn't mean everyone at the table has to agree with it. And just because I'm your colleague and I work with you every day doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I said, you don't agree with everything I do, and I'm okay with that because your disagreement makes me a better special education teacher. But when I have a disagreement with you, does that not make you a better speech language pathologist? So, how do we all come together and do what's best for the child and put our differences, on the table? Because if this parent is over here saying their child's struggling to speak and their child got lost in the supermarket and didn't have the language to figure out how to get found by their parents, and you're telling me this child doesn't need more speech goals, and I'm telling you that we went on a field trip and this same child that almost got lost still cannot communicate to get found by someone. You're telling me that now we're just going to give her the speech and language goals and services? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's a life skill to learn how to communicate to some degree, whether verbally or physically, through gestures, so that you can maintain your safety and promote safety for others. And if that's something a child cannot do, then why are we not doing that? So I've been in meetings where, it's been very litigious and I would say crazy intense, where I've been the person who's just like, I'm not bending. I said, this child, I work with the child every day. I see how hard he or she or they work every day. And you cannot tell me that this person, you cannot do this to this child. Well, the evaluation says blank. Okay, the evaluation is a norm for certain children that don't look like the children I serve. And so last time I checked, if you want to work with them, go ahead and work with them for more than 20 minutes on an evaluation, here or there. You work with them on an evaluation for 2 weeks, 20 minutes sessions. I've been working with them for a whole year, multiple hours out the day. You're trying to tell me I don't know what this child is going through? I work with them after school when I tutor them. And so I think being brave for me is started in IEP meetings in my professional career by just saying, no, I don't agree with that. I don't think that this goal is right for them. I don't think adding more. There have been times I'm just like, adding more services is not going to help either. So, I've been the person in the IEP meeting room that's probably been, some people would say difficult, but I don't see it as difficult because I see it as me just being honest and being brave for the child and often asking people, why is the child not in the IEP meeting? They're the most important member of the IEP team.
Yeah.
And I've had people say the parent's the most important. I said, well, who's the plan written for, the parent or the child? And I said, so let's get the child in the meeting. Well, they're a first grader. They don't have to start attending the meeting legally until they're about 14. I said, no, that's not true. The federal law says that they can attend the meeting whenever they want. So that so we should ask this first grader to come here and ask them,
Mhm.
do they think that learning about shapes is more important, or do they want to learn how to add? Because they'll tell you which one they really want to work on. And then that should be our goal. It's like, but they don't know. I said, let's stop doing this to our children, saying that they don't know what they want, they don't know what they need. You'll be shocked how
Right.
many kindergartners and first graders know what they want and what they need.
Mhm.
It's just that we have to get them the platform and the support to actually do something about it. So I've been in IP meetings. I'm like, give me a second, I'll be right back. And I'll run upstairs and I'll bring the kid down, even though no one else wants to get there. And I'll just say, hey, I know I brought you out of class, but I know you've been working on writing. What's the thing that you really want to learn how to write? And sometimes I'll say, I want to learn how to write stories. I want to learn how to write an essay. I want to learn how to write a letter to my friends or whoever it may be. I'm like, okay, so let's find a way to merge that with all the things that we see in the evaluations and give them that support to do that thing because that's something that they want to develop. So I think being brave for me is always centering the voices of children and not believing that just because they're younger that they don't have any agency or any power. They should feel like they have agency and power because I think, in the grand scheme of life and where we are in our country and in the world, I think people who feel powerless tend to cling to those who say that they got a lot of power. And that doesn't always work out for everybody. And I think if our children know that they have power from the moment that they were conceived and that the moment that they arrived on this planet, that I think we would be in a different situation in this world right now, that they realize that there's power even though they're not of voting age.
Yeah.
There's power even though they're not working. There's power just because they exist, and there's power because they are the descendants of those who existed and struggled to exist. So I want all of the children to know that. And that's why I've been focusing, that's why I focus so much on being brave is something that I do when I wake up. I don't realize I'm doing it sometimes. My girlfriend was just like, you're just like coming, on a 10. I was like, this feels like a 2 for me because it's like a Monday. Like it feels normal for me because she's more introverted than I am. So she's like, oh my gosh, how do you get to that point? I'm like, I don't know. It's in my spirit. I can't help it. When I see someone being disserviced, it just does something to me and I can't sit by idly. I know I got some power to do something about it. So I use what I got.
You gave several words in this. I'm just saying it is in some conversations that I've been having with folks around owning your power and just understanding who you are. You made a decision, whether or not that was a seed that was already planted, whether or not that was ancestral, gifting that came through the bloodline, but there was something that fueled your desire to advocate for those who you felt may be disenfranchised by the system, that the system isn't working for them, and that you were going to leverage your voice and your genius in order to advocate for those. I believe it started with those who are near and dear to you, with your brothers,
Yeah.
as you shared, and then you expanded that love offering so that more folks could actually be a benefit to that. And this makes me think about parents. I think about how many parents in Baltimore. It is
Mhm.
about 70,000 students, and most of them are Black and Brown young
Mhm.
people
That's correct.
who are learning in the system there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I recognize for parents, they may feel disenfranchised, especially for Black and Brown parents, especially
Mhm.
where, they are working multiple jobs. They're still reliant upon the education system to educate them on how their child or children are learning,
Mhm.
as well as what are the ways that the system is working to help
Mhm.
them with their journey, but you are seeing that the system isn't necessarily working always to their good. And so I'm curious for parents who are here and listening to the conversation, are wanting to own their power, but
Mhm.
are disenfranchised because they didn't have great experiences in
Mhm.
being educated, possibly in the same system. But
Mhm.
they are trying to they've put and placed their best child, regardless of all the things that are going on, their best child or best
Mhm.
children in the hands of educators and schools and systems, with
Mhm.
the hope that their children will be better on the other side.
Mhm.
And as someone who is advocating for students, especially our special education young people, I'm curious what advice you would offer to parents about how do they own their power in schools today, based on what you're seeing or based on what you're experiencing in the work you do.
Sure. The first place I always start is I forgot who's the statement that it's not that we're powerless, it's that we haven't recognized that we already have power.
Hmm.
I'm paraphrasing. I think it's Alice
Marianne Williams.
Walker. Alice Walker, I think it's her. Yeah. So I'm paraphrasing is sometimes we don't even realize we have power.
Mhm.
To all the families who are listening, you already have power. The fact that you are a human being and that you're alive and you're breathing, that in itself is an element of power itself because there's an energy in you that doesn't exist with inside of anyone else other than you. I think that's the first place because I think so many family members think that this is it feels like a hill, a mountain to climb sometimes for their children. And as a result, the first place that they start is I see the mountain. There's no way I can climb. I don't have hiking boots. I
Mhm.
don't have all the tools I need to climb this mountain, and I'm just kind of stuck. But I think the first place is realizing that every mountain that's presented in front of you, there's always a path that you can, carve out of it to find a way around it or on top of it or underneath it or through it.
Mhm.
It's just that you have to recognize that there is something within inside of you that you already have. Even if it's just a motivation to do something, that in itself is a tool to go up the mountain. That's the power. Sometimes I think the power is not even starting. I think a lot of people, we can all feel that. Like we had that idea or that thing we wanted to start, we never did it because of the fear behind it. Once you decided you're going to do it, that's where your power starts. The next thing I would say is there are a lot of free resources out there like the Parent Center Hub. They provide free trainings for families all across the nation. They will let you know where there's a family center in your neighborhood or close to your neighborhood where you can go and get free trainings. The advocacy process and what parts of your child's education are your rights at the federal and state and local levels. There are kind of like new tools that are coming out from the AI sector, like Playground IEP and Highlighter, which are AI tools to help you better understand your child's IEP or their behavior intervention plan, helps you sort through and collect data on it and put things in an organized way so you can keep track of your child's records.
Nice.
There are advocates out there. I'm a member of the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates, or COPA, and we have a resource directory where you can look us up and find someone in your area that has a specialty in your child's particular need area, and we'll support you. I've had most of my support has been for Black male students who are neurodivergent because that's like I said, those are who I served as my brothers and also as a lot of my clients. So I think there are a lot of free resources. I mean, this is the era of information, and I can definitely tell you there are a lot more resources out there now than there have ever been. Even throughout my experience in education, I mean, 14 going on 15 years, I've seen so many changes in the last 5 years of free resources for families. I also encourage you to go to your school board. If you email a member of your school board, often they will send you information for free trainings or free resources or workshops that you can get or receive or attend. And there are all these other things. I mean, like I said, there's I think now of age is like more things to kind of process through than less than years ago. So I say use all those tools to your advantage, but I always say start with people who genuinely care about your child as well, who not only is an expert in the area, but genuinely cares. Because I know a lot of experts that don't care. I'm just going to say that now. I know a lot of experts who are very good at their job, and that is what they're good at, but they are not good at working with your child or believing in your child or seeing your child. And so start with the people who genuinely care and have the skills and expertise to support you, whether that's a nonprofit in your area or whether that is a private consultant, whatever you think is best for you and best for your budget. So that's what I would say for your power is recognizing there are all these resources out there and just locating the one that works best for you or where you are right now. And as you get better at that, knowing that you have more power because you've already conquered the first hurdle and you're gaining more knowledge, more resources, and you're going to feel like that mountain is starting to become a hill over time, like a little small little anthill, because you've now gained that experience. And be open to the learning process. There are going to be some things you don't know. There are going to be some mistakes that you do make. But remember, when you're in this process for education, especially IEPs and behavior intervention plans, these are living documents. They can change at any given time. So if you agree to something on a Monday and then 2 weeks later you're like, you know what? That's not really what I agreed to. You can have a whole nother meeting and change the whole thing if that's what you need to do. So don't feel like you're locked in place or things are locked in stone. You're not. The document is breathing for a reason, a living, breathing document because you're a living, breathing person just like your child is. And what you feel on December might be different than what you feel in March about your child. And your child is going to change as well. Your child might tell you, this isn't working for me. Like, I'm not really getting much out of this experience. So check in with your child because your child is going to give you the information you need about if it's working for them. Don't just wait for the reports. Don't just wait for the report cards. 'Cause I always tell parents, don't wait for the report cards to see that things are not happening well. Check in with your child and say, hey, is this working for you? When you go and meet with your teacher or your pull-out group, do you feel like you're gaining anything? Do you feel like you're learning anything? And if they say, I don't know what I'm learning, that's an opportunity that you have some power to pick up the phone
Mhm.
or email somebody and say, hey, what's going on in this small group? Can I observe? Can I see what they're learning so I can kind of get a better sense of why my child is saying that he or she or they are not getting something out of this? So you got a lot of power. I just say use it and know that you got it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. Know you have it and use it in a way that's meaningful to you. You know, power can be a great thing, but I've worked with some families where I have to tell them you got to scale back a little bit as well. Sometimes you feel all the power and you feel invincible, and then you just scare off everybody. So you got to learn how to rein in your power when you got a lot of it, because that can also happen too. So having a balance of knowing you have power and using it well, but not turning it into a weapon, using it as a tool and not a weapon, because people, when you weaponize power, don't feel comfortable around you, don't feel comfortable being honest. And what we want is that parents feel empowered to be honest, but for other people to be honest with them as well, so that they can, make decisions as a team.
Yeah. I think all very insightful, insights and wisdom for how parents can navigate the system. And some of the things that I have come to know as a school leader and as a fellow educator, and working with families through the process is how often are you actually having regular conversations with your
Mhm.
child and just asking, like, what are you learning? Tell me a little bit more about how did your teacher deliver that? Like, talk to me
Mhm.
about some of the lessons. And
Mhm.
sometimes I hear from many parents who still reach out to me and want me to be part of their special education meetings for whatever the thing is of that moment. You have the opportunity to present like anecdotes of like, this is what I've heard. This is a screenshot of what my child brought home. Here's what
Mhm.
I'm hearing and seeing. Let me, and I've always said, leverage curiosity. Get
Yeah.
curious about, ask lots of questions. And the your school, your community should continue to be able to find answers. If they don't have them immediately, like, hey, I'm gonna get back to you. I think that's a great question. Let me follow up and make sure that I get the answers that will help you to
Mhm.
better understand how your child is thinking, growing.
Mhm.
in this thing.
Mhm.
I am also hopeful before we get to the game to
Mhm.
also get a little bit of Black boy joy. Cause one of the
Yeah.
things that, you talked about was your work started with your brothers,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you're doing a lot of work on behalf of Black males from what I'm
That's right.
hearing. And so I'm just curious for you, what are some of the tools you have developed, or what help us to understand, like, how do we get in your ecosystem, part of your
Mhm.
programming? What is the work that you're doing specifically tailored to Black males
Mhm.
that we should really be tapped into with?
Sure. So I lead workshops and I've been in a lot of conferences lately. It's been probably a bit, this has been a busy season. So, and it's been hot and I've been sweating. So I think the big part is the workshops I lead is how do you design learning opportunities for Black male students who are neurodivergent? And so a lot of those things come down to, do you even understand their neurodivergence? Like a lot of people just don't. I mean, you, if unless you really know those disability categories very, very well and ask the child and kind of just like observe and just check in. Going back to the part with families, one of the things that a lot of my families, when I was in the classroom, um, you know, said often to me is I'm the only case manager they work with that checked in with them every 2.5 weeks,
Mhm.
like religiously. I would just say, here's what I saw over the past 2 weeks. Are you seeing this at home? Let me know, yes or no. I would quick little text or email. Here's what I'm trying. And I would take a brief little video, like if I can find a video of someone teaching it online, or if I can I had time to like video how I would do something. And I would say, could you try this at home and tell me if it works for you? So I think often those are some of the practices I do is just a lot of modeling, a lot of resource sharing. And in the workshops, we talk about the unique experiences of cultural relevance meets accessibility,
Mm.
so that we can't just disconnect the accessibility features for our neurodivergent learners and then not be also concerned with who they are as a whole human being and their cultural upbringing and the way they show up. So we do a lot of work with culturally relevant pedagogy and showing how you can use relevant text to still do the science of reading. Because what I've also seen in the science of reading research, and I've had my love that we're moving more into a research based space with reading because we needed to be in that space for a while, is that often the decodables do not look like our children. Often they do not, represent our children's experiences. So some of the work I've done is design curriculum with tutoring agencies like the Innovative Learners and Carnegie Learning to have some of those texts that are culturally relevant that include our students' experiences in them so that they don't just see these as like, Pat sat on a lap and then and that's about it. So, because it's beautiful that they're learning all the sounds, they're learning how to read, but if they're not reading to be more connected within themselves or others in their community, then, I don't really know what the point is. I mean, the point of learning is not just to be proficient as an individual, but it is to be of in community because we don't live in echo chambers. We don't live by ourselves. And so I do some of the work. I challenge some of the work of people in the field in some of these workshops where I say, people talk about the Mississippi miracle, but a real miracle would be if all the Black male students in the state who were literate now had a job and a
Mm.
job that, paid them well and that they could, move away from poverty or if they had anti-poverty legislation. It's one thing to teach them how to be literate. It's another thing to make sure they're not impoverished. And so some of that work is also in there. So some of my workshops actually show some of the data of not only just making sure they're literate or they can count, they can multiply and all those things, but how do we get them out in their community and see themselves as change makers in their own lives and in their communities, getting them ready for apprenticeships, getting them ready for higher education, getting them ready to be entrepreneurs if that's their choice, and
Mm.
making sure that they have accessibility features like knowing what Google plugins on their computers can help them write their business plan, like knowing those kind of things, knowing which organizations around them provide them the services that they need to be successful, whether it helps them with locating apartments or whatever it may be that, and also just having curriculum that just feels good. Like I wrote some lessons about some slave rebellions that have happened in the US because I think often um, the history that's presented in our country about being Black and or being a descendant of enslaved African is very minute. I remember in high school myself, and I once again I told you most of my teachers were Black, most
Mhm.
of them. And I remember throughout, unless I had a teacher who was like really Afrocentric, it wasn't like I really learned much about Black people. And I mean, I learned a lot at home from my great uncle Earl, who inspired me to be the learner I am today. But that was it. The chapters were really short on Black history. Like the Civil Rights Movement was like a page and a half. I'm like, how do you limit the Civil Rights Movement to a page and a half of the 60s and 70s? That's crazy. So one of the things I did is I designed lessons on like some of the more notable slave rebellions, some of the Black Wall Streets across the country, and showing what happened when Black people came together as community. How did they resist? Because there's this narrative that I've had, even white students I work with, that why didn't they fight back? I've heard that a lot of my career. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not the message I want students to leave with. It's just like, why did we not fight back? We did fight back, and very extensively, and we are still fighting back today, with the attacks on public education and education, in large. So those are some of the kind of works I do. I work with my organizations to make sure that they're creating curriculum solutions that make sense, and also encourage students who otherwise would be discouraged, so that they can see they can do something in their community like tomorrow. They don't have to wait until they're of voting age. You don't have to wait until they have a job to do something. That they have power just because they're a living, breathing human being. I say that a lot because um, that's why I named the company Realize Curriculum Solutions, because I don't think people realize how much power they have. I don't people realize how much love and joy that's within inside them. That is the antidote to all the hatred that's around them. And I want people to tap into that. So some of my PDs I lead often start with me saying to people, I love you because you exist.
All
And
right.
that's been a controversial thing I've said at PDs. There have been people who's like, I cannot say this to someone else unless they're my husband or children. I can't say this to someone unless it's my partner. And I'm like, well, if you can't love someone just because they exist, then you're going to be silent in their oppression.
Mm.
Like that's just really what that's going to be. So I start every PD with that and sharing that you should be able to say to your students, I love you just because you exist. And I've had people just say, well, Leroy, I hope you don't say that to your students. I say, yes, I've always said that to every one of my students. And my students, if they see me in a supermarket, a few of my students work at a supermarket I go to here in Baltimore, if
Mhm.
they see me, it's still love. They'll say, Mr. Smith, they'll give me a hug and everything. And I see their children, and if I have any extra books lying around the house, because teachers, we always collect a whole bunch of books for whatever
Mhm.
strange reason. I still read all this youth, literature. And I'm just like, all right. And I just read through it and I think it's cool. And I'll just drop off whatever I have for them. And they're my old students and have their own children now. And so I think the big thing is making sure that people actually know that they feel love and there's power in that. So that's a lot of what I do. I mean, my girlfriend would say, you're not just doing the work of like teaching pedagogy, but you're really teaching people how to love each other
Yeah.
and teaching them how to love children who typically have not been deemed worthy to love. Because she's in psychology and she has a lot of crossover with the work that she does in cultural relevant space. And she's just like, I think that's powerful because not a lot of Black men are out there just saying to the rooftop to a lot of people who don't look like us, you got to say you love the kids, even if they give you difficult times. Because trust me, I had kids that cursed me out, attacked me, all the above.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I still say, you know what? It was a rough day, but I still love you because you know what? I don't know what's going to happen today or tomorrow. And if the last words that come out my mouth are something horrible to you, I don't want that to be the experience. I want you to hear the last words out of my mouth when you leave this door today that I love you. And I hope that you come back tomorrow and I hope you do better tomorrow because I know you can. And that's just it. And so I think that's how I've led the work that I've been doing. And that's what I'm going to continue to do at the best ways that I possibly can and find ways to improve upon it. But that's what I center.
Well, thank you for that. I can't let you go without, it is great to know that you are loved, but I
Hmm.
also want to know what are some of the Baltimore experiences that you may or may not love. And so I just want to play a little bit of our signature game. It's really cool. It's real
Uh-huh.
chill. I believe you'll keep your Baltimore, cred
Yeah.
intact. So just got a few questions, flavorful bowl, rooted in pride and the pulse of the city. Just curious, So I'm gonna ask a couple of questions. Would you tell somebody's grandma? Would you tell a grandmother that her
Hmm.
peach cobbler might be mid and say it in front of her?
Yes.
Oh, really? You've done
Yeah.
that?
I'm from West Baltimore. We keep it real funky, fresh and clean. I mean, where I grew up, I mean, part of my community was in The Wire. I was actually, as a kid, they paid us as extras to be in The Wire because we like season 1 and 2, just because they were filming right next to our middle school. They just gave us money and we just ran around and just we all wasted it on candy anyway. Uh, we wasted our money. It was only $50, but whatever. It was a lot of money to us. We grew up in the hood, so we're very blunt in my family. My family is probably the most blunt people you'll ever meet. They'll say that you're, you know, they'll just say anything. They'll just say it's nasty. They don't care who it is.
Okay. All right. So, would you try the mystery flavor at Hip Hop Fish and Chicken without asking what it is?
Well, since I'm pescatarian slash mainly vegetarian, vegan some days, depending on
Okay.
which how I feel,
Yeah.
I am opposed to even trying hip hop chicken. And the last time I did, I did not like it. So no.
Okay. Would you bring tofu to the cookout at Druid Hill Park?
Maybe like I make a pretty good like soy like kind of teriyaki kind of fried tofu thing. So
Hmm.
maybe it depends on who I'm around. I would only bring it for the people, my family or friends group that are trying to be health conscious.
Got it. Got it. Would you admit in public that you've never had half and half tea, half lemonade?
Well, I have had it my entire
Okay.
life, so I don't think there's anything to admit. I mean, I love it.
Okay. That's what's up. From the South, I very much know what it is. But
Yeah,
I have heard some folks say like they don't necessarily talk about it. And I'm like, I don't understand what the issue is. Like it
nor
is
do I.
what it is. Just
Nor
order
do I. Some people just some people just finicky about that. I think it's the way it's made too. Like I particularly like a half and half that has unsweetened iced tea and lemonade with like a little bit of sugar or honey in it or something like that. So it's not too sweet. I think that's why most people don't like half and half because it's like sugar put on top of sugar, and for some people that just bothers them.
it. Okay. My last question is probably the most controversial question that I will ask today. Mike's Crab House, Phillips Seafood, or Captain James Landing?
Captain James, definitely. The others, Phillips, I don't know, it's too franchisey.
Hmm.
The food there is not good to me. I mean, I've had Phillips a bunch of, it's just not good to me.
Okay.
The only thing that's good at Phillips are the hush puppies. Those are good.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Mike's, you know, hmm, how can I say it? Mike's, I don't know. I don't feel like I don't feel like I belong at Mike's
Oh,
culturally. Like, I feel like there's, like some people do, but I'm not, Mike's is, I think, in Baltimore County, kind of Baltimore City line.
yeah.
Uh, I, no, it just, Captain James, I like it because it's looking over Inner Harbor
Hmm.
and you get all of Baltimore. And if you sit at the top, I was just sitting there a few weeks ago. The food is really good there. Like the grilled octopus, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
And you can have a good time, party, dance. I mean, it can get very lit up in Captain James. Like they have two little spaces, and the dirt bike boys will come down, and the dirt bike girls will come down. People will ride their bike through the city. I think it's a whole kind of, it's like real Baltimore. It's like
Okay.
you got the bougie people who live in that area. Then you
Yeah.
got all the people who are coming from the surrounding hoods that are just riding through, and we're just all having a good time. So for me, I choose Cap because it just feels like home. It feels like true Baltimore, like a mixture of all the cultures happening at the same corner, believe
Nice.
it or not. And it looks like a boat. So the actual building looks like a boat too. So I like it. So
Yeah. I've
yeah.
not been to Captain James yet. I've been to a number of other spots. I'm just curious, for those
Love
who like,
Papa's.
right?
Papa's is one of my favorite. Yep, they're one of my favorite.
So folks got recommendations, right?
Yeah. I mean, their crab cake is delicious. The shrimp salad is delicious. I mean, if you love seafood, can't go wrong there. Service is impeccable. I've always had good service.
Nice, nice. All right. Well, I want to make sure I let you go off and do some great things. Continue to enjoy your time, your weekend, your night, all of the
Mhm.
things. I'm just curious, how can folks stay connected to you, learn more about Realize Curriculum Solutions, and or bring your work to their school, district, or organization?
Sure. So if you look us up, realized solutions LLC.com, that's the easiest place to find us.
Mm.
You'll find all of our contact information there. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, and I think those are the only places we're at. Like, yeah, and YouTube. So we're planning to have a little bit more as we've rebranded recently and changed the website. So that's
Okay.
coming out soon with the new branding and just messaging. So get ready for that, everybody. But if
Okay.
you find us at realizedsolutionsllc.com, that's the easiest place to find us, and we'll get in contact with you. And we always have a good time. I always say that all my partners, they feel like extended family members, and I try to make sure everyone feels that because um, a lot of people who've given to me have been people who have not even been my own blood related family. And I want to make sure I can give back the same love that I've received.
Well, thank you, Leroy Smith, for being who you are. You are seen, you are loved, and
I
I'm
appreciate it.
thankful that you joined us
Thank
for
you.
the podcast.
Thank you, Craig. This is great.
Awesome. Well, for family, y'all have spent a lot of quality time. Y'all have some incredible recommendations on taking care of your young people in the classroom. You also have some recommendations as parents who are navigating complex systems. You have some suggestions on curriculum and resources and tools you can actually get from Leroy as well. And recommendations on where to eat or not eat involved more if you are there. So
Hmm.
that is all for this episode of Brave Voices Education. If this conversation challenged or affirmed you, send it to your village. If you are about building braver curriculum, braver schools, or braver leadership, we want to make sure we hear your story as well. Please reach out and DM, share, tag, like, subscribe, do all the things here at bravevoicespod.com. Until next time, lead loud, lead brave, lead whole. Y'all take care.